Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Dennis Wong, Managing Director of Networks for Optus.
Good afternoon, everyone. You can hear me all right? Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I know I'm really excited to be here and talking about a topic that I'm very, very passionate about. Now, before I start, a little bit of a formality, right? So this is a Cisco event, so I have to say thank you to Cisco. So, Cisco has been a very great partner for Optus for many years. And as we embark on 5G, Cisco has actually been part of our plan and been working very closely with us. The partnership will only grow stronger, and I wish Cisco a very, very successful show here. Now, after the formalities, a little bit of informalities. I know it's 1 p.m. Some of you have lunch. It's going to be a sleepy session. Now, so in the past, I'm not known to be a good presenter, so I'm a bit nervous, and I kind of talk a little bit fast. So later, if I ask some questions, please patronize me by lifting up your hands, even if you don't understand me, all right? Now, this is going to be a session that I'm going to talk about 5G. So to some of you, it's a myth. To some of you, it's reality. So I'm going to start talking about it. And remember, my professor actually told me before, if you want to make a DAO presentation very good, ask a marketeer to do it. If you want an exciting topic to be DAO, ask an engineer to do it. So it's a challenge for me. So please bear with me. So these are the three things I'm going to talk about today. What exactly is 5G? How we are going to prepare for 5G? And if 5G is a game changer for everyone, what is it in for you, all of you? So let's start. What is 5G? I understand that this morning during the keynote speech, the speaker also used a photo of the daughter. This is also my daughter, and this is 5G. If you interpret this, some of you will say that it's safety. Yeah, 5G is safety. Peace of mind. Automated car. Actually, it's not. Actually, it's what happened to my daughter after I tried to explain to her what is 5G. So it was a conversation before that. The conversation before that, she was asking me, Dad, when can I have my own phone? Just like my brothers. I said, yeah, another 5 years' time, you go get your own phone. So she says, does it mean that I got 4G? Because to her, 4G on Optus means it's high-speed 4G. I said, that got me thinking. In 5 years' time, will we be talking about 4G, 5G, or 6G? That is the essence. Do we know what's the future hold? I will start a little bit with a little bit of history about the mobility scene. For me, I've been in the mobility scene for a while. Some of you may not. So let me share a little bit. It started with 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. But way before that time, 30 over years ago. So this is the first question. How many of you do know a modem called US Robotics? That's 9,600 baud rate that goes... How many of you? Thank you. You make me feel not that old. This is where it started off. 9,600 baud rate is 9.6 kilobit. Can you imagine now 9.6 kilobit? Fast forward 20 years later. As a young engineer, I was off in a special military vessel off an offshore lighthouse to repair a microwave link that was 2 meg. If today, if you give your son a mobile speed of 2 meg, he probably said, Dad, I don't want a phone. So we can see things move very fast. 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. There's a few things that I want you to put your focus on in this slide. If you look at that, in the past, when 2G started off, it's only voice and SMS. That kept us going. We were happy with that. Then after that, we got 3G. You get a little bit smarter. We can do, kind of a payment station. We can do ATM. It gets a little bit better. 4G, smartphone. What is it that with a smartphone you can't do? You do everything with it now. So what happens when 5G comes? You can do much more. And the solution will be out of just your handset. It will be everything else. the verticals that is going to support is going to be totally different from what you can expect right now. The other thing that if you look at, in the past, when you switch on your 4G, right now, you can probably get 200 meg, 300 meg on a mobile phone. But when it comes to 5G, it will be more than 2 gig. But one of the very important aspect of 5G is the latency. I will talk a little bit about latency later. Why is it very important for all of us? Now, just remember one fact. For a human, for you to detect the sensitivity, your reaction time is about 30 milliseconds. Right? So when you want to have a latency lower than 10 milliseconds or 5 milliseconds, it means that it's faster than human reaction. And this is going to be crucial. The time to maturity. If you look at the time to maturity, 10 years, 7 years, 4 years, 3 years, do you see a trend? It's getting shorter and shorter. So what does it mean? It means that 5G will probably mature in 2 years, 1 year. And what else does it mean? It actually means that they are actually leveraging off each of the technology. So 5G actually leverage off 4G. And that's the reason why for Optus, we have invested in 4G in both breadth and depth. When I say this, it really means that in our regional area, we're actually putting out a whole mess of base stations because this is preparation for 5G as well. The depth in the city, we are putting out a lot of capacity in the city because this is also preparing for 5G itself. All of you would have read in the news that Optus has already started 4.5G in Melbourne, over here in this great city here, as well as in the city of Sydney. We are seeing a lot of use cases. We are seeing a lot of capability that this high capacity can bring us. The last point, if you can see, technology-led developments and service-led developments. That is also one very crucial differences. Why? In the past, when I tell you that you can only use SMS, fine, I use SMS. Today, every services that are leveraging on 4G, I can't even count the number of applications that are there in the App Store or in the Google Play Store, because all these are being developed by people. How many of you in your own company have your own apps? I would say most of you, yeah. See, this is where the beauty of it comes from. So what is 5G different from 4G? There are 4 aspects. First and foremost, enhanced speed, which is the most important thing right now, because this is where the interim standards of 5G, rather the governing body, has endorsed in December, right? It's about higher speed. So in this particular case, what are the use cases? We heard about the US, talking about FWA. Optus ourselves will be launching FWA in 2019, early 2019. So the first use case of 5G is the extreme bandwidth. Yeah. Now, the second thing, which I think is very important, is the low latency. Like I mentioned, low latency is important. One simple example that you guys would have, how many of you has tried the VR before? The Google and the VR. If I were to tell you a human reaction to sensitivity is 30 milliseconds, if you move your head quickly and the VR image couldn't detect it fast enough and move with you, what will happen? You will see a lag. If you do dramatic or fast-moving action, what will you feel after a few seconds? You'll feel very giddy. That is one of the use cases of low latency. High availability. One of the things about 5G is about high availability. It's about meshing up the networks. It's about multiple points connection, so that if anything goes wrong, the other link is kicking. Today, if you were to ask yourself, how many of us, tongue-in-cheek, but if I ask you, that you go to your toilet in your home and you couldn't use a mobile phone to do a surfing, you get upset. I'm one of them. So, this is one of the things that we're talking about, high availability. It's got to be everywhere. Now, the next thing I really talk about is mass connectivity. We all heard about IoT. We all talk about millions of connectivities. So that is also one of the use cases of 5G. 5G, the mass connectivity or machine connectivity is one of the other aspects that 5G is going to be very different from everywhere else. So somebody will ask, how do we know that this is the kind of capability or QoS that we need for 5G. How do we know that this is the right thing? Is it something that the engineers or the academics or somebody in the lab think about it and say that let's have this capability? And so let's build the spec of 5G around this. That was in the past when 2G and 3G started. That's why I say it's a technology-led kind of development. Now 5G is developed actually based on NGMN. It's called Next Generation Mobile Network. It's a consortium that is made up by the leading 31 operator of the world. So as you can see, it's a little bit different. The approach is very much service and what customer needs. So the operators brought about what kind of service that in the future that we will need and put it into what we call a specification, and that's how it comes up with. So 5G is actually something what I feel is kind of like, I would say that it's kind of like a thought-through process that is going to help us all. Yeah. So I talk a little bit about high bandwidth. I talk about low latency. So like I said, the NGNM thought of all the kind of services that we need. So over here, as you can see, some of these services that we call the quadrant that could be used in terms of when it's low latency or when it's high bandwidth. There's a few what I call a example that I want to call out too. For example, how many of you watch a science fiction film and you see the 3D hologram, of the terrain and the hologram of somebody talking to you, projected and things like that. And if you ask yourself, hey, this sounds like something simple. Why is it that nobody's doing it? Why? One of the reasons is that technology probably haven't reached that kind of stage. But that's what 5G promises to do. That's what 5G is going to bring to you. It's about low latency and high bandwidth. To do a holographic projection, you're talking about 3D. And 3D, you're talking about multiple, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the kind of bandwidth that you transmit. You're talking about the low latency. So when the hologram moves, the whole thing got to move in unison. If you don't have the kind of latency, you will see the speaking out of sync. You'll see the movement out of sync. So this is where hologram could be one of the use cases. So it's a little bit airy-fairy, right, hologram? So what is something real? During one of my many visits to many places, one of the leading doctors actually told me that one of the use of 5G is remote surgery. There are not enough doctors out there. There are not enough people to help us. There's not enough people to be out in the field when there is a critical need, especially for humanity reasons. So that's one of the use cases. And it struck a chord with me. Why? 2 or 3 years back, my wife actually she got to go for operation in the heart. She got an ablation, rhythmic in the heart. So, but the ablation that she needed to do was in a very special place in the heart. The surgeon tried one time, no can do. Come back, they have a discussion. They said, we got to use a robot to do it. So the doctor actually got a set of robots that will go precisely to that place and do the burning of the ablation and to cure her. Then it happens to me. If this is what is going to happen, can this be application? And do you know why we have to use robot instead of a human to do that? You may not know it. Like I say, human, while we are very sensitive to a lot of things, our sensitivity is not as good as a machine or a robot. No matter what you do, if you look at the microscopic level, your hand is shaking. That's the reason why for precision surgery and things like that, you can't work. So the precision, remote control, the latency, and the precision of the bandwidth and everything else come into play to make all this a reality in the future. So this is, like I say, it's a use case that 5G could bring to you. Is it going to be now? Nope. Is it going to be the future? Yes. How long? We got to find out, right? Can I have a show of hand again? How many of you here are consultant? Boy, we all love consultant. Before the technology is out there, they can tell you how much the value of the industry is. But I do like consultant because that's how I convince my boss to invest in technologies. Now, if we look at this use case and the verticals that, McKinsey and HIS come up with, that's a lot of money. $94.5 trillion. I know why all of you are here, because everyone wants to have a part of the 94.5 trillion, isn't it? That's why we are all here learning. Now, if you look at it, some of the big areas on the call out, the government and the public sector, banking, agriculture, while they might not be on the radar, they are actually very good use cases. I'll run through some use cases later. But I think if you look at it, centralized adaptive traffic control in smart cities is something that is a no-brainer. We know that it's going to happen. Now we talk about mission-critical drones and networks. If you are out there in the wilderness, you are out there in some places, without the fiber, without the microwave, you've got to depend on the mobility network. And that's where all the 5G comes into play. What is the other definition of 5G? I'm going to share with you another definition of 5G. But before that, let me run through this. I think all the engineers who've gone through engineering school, we talk about, if you also study social economics, you know that how human progresses. We have what you call machinization. That's where the first revolution is, your steam engine, etc. Then you go for mass production. Then with automations, we move to the next level. Where we are now at the dawn of a new era that's called digitalization. That's where all the AIs, the digitalization, the zero touch is going to revolution the way we work, isn't it? What I want to tell you is 5G is actually, to me, all right, the final puzzle for the industrialization. Because 5G is what's going to bring to you the premium mobility connection. That's why I say that is important. As you can see, 5G is going to bring to you low latency, high bandwidth, and actually it also bring to you a certain capability, the network slicing. Within the same network, you can have multiple services, all kinds of services. It doesn't have to be the same specification. This is one of the beauty of 5G. It gives you flexibility. Together with digitalization, end-to-end service chaining, end-to-end service quality assurance is what we want to see. Sometimes, when we look at the way we work, perhaps we have to change a little bit. For example, when I say that, hey, this is my process, this is my service here to here, I got 5 processes in the middle. So that I say, guys, we need to be better, we need to be more productive. So what can we do? So I say, okay, out of the 5 services, which one can I digitalize? Which one can I automate? And we start doing that, right? But what if I tell you that that is the wrong way to do it? If you're here and you're here, you got 5 services, and only 2 of the services can be digitalized or automate, why don't you think of this and change the whole process in the middle so that everything is automated? That is a new thinking that I think for the new digitalization, new world, is something that we need to adopt. AI. How many of you heard of a service called N by 64 or FLM or something like that? Good. I can tell you that I have a particular case whereby we have a service, and the guy who is repairing this, he said, oh, I'm the only guy that is now in this company that knows how to repair it. So I said, okay, could you go and repair it since it's down? I said, yeah, but I can't remember how to repair it. Why? The last time it broken down was like 15 years ago. What I'm trying to share with you is that in the past, those technology, they are so robust because they're so simple that it hardly breaks down. One thing that is going to change from all of us is that if we look at what's the services we have now, no one service is a silo. Everything is chained up. You have a lot of modules running. There's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of security. There's a lot of concern. Now, so when things break down, it's never easy to repair. So that's where I want to talk a little bit about predictive analytics. This is where it really means that before things happen, you should know it, you should prevent it from happening. That's the next thing that I think is important as we move to the next generation of industrialization or workforce, as we call it. Of course, cloud, everyone knows cloud. We all love clouds. we love Google's, we love Amazon. I think one thing is that clouds bring us the scalability as well as the availability and reliability as well as speed. So all this will bring about the industrialization 4.0, which I think some of the speakers will talk about later today. So that's 5G. 5G can do a lot of things. But like I said, 5G is only at the start. So does it mean that 1 year later, we just flick a finger, flick a switch, and 5G is up and running? No. Now, because of its requirement, stringent requirement for low latency, because of its stringent requirement for the bandwidth and availability, for operators like Optus, like the rest of the world, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it much earlier. We started our preparation about 1-2 years ago. We worked with Cisco to look at our network and see how can we improve and how can we change the way we do. There's quite a lot of things that we have done, but I'll probably just pick up a few to share with you so that you guys can have an idea. One of the things I want to talk about is that modernizing our transport layer. Probably many, many years ago, when we start talking about, oh, I'm going to have 1 gig at my home or 2 gig at my home, somebody will ask, why would you want 1 gig for? What kind of service are you going to do? Now, some of my customer or some of OB customer is asking for, can I have a 10 gig link? Can I have a 100 gig link? And even in my home country in Singapore, residential, we are selling 10 Gbps. And it's like our NBN, right? It's selling 10 Gbps. So you can see that all this is going to be important. Now, for you to have the kind of latency, you cannot afford to have the architecture that is very high and hierarchical. There will be a lot of steps that you got to go down and to go up. So we got to flatten all our architecture. And everything got to be software-based. The other thing I want to really talk about is that 5G, like I said, the first use case of 5G is the large bandwidth. So that's where Optus is doing. We have our 3.5 gigahertz bandwidth, which is the harmonized bandwidth for 5G, the only one that's available now. We are deploying it. By the end of this year, we're going to have some trial. By early next year, we are going to run out FWA services. That will give us the experience of what 5G is like. The other thing I want to talk about over here is service orchestration. In the future, my vision of how you guys will work, or my enterprise customer will work, will be that at the portal, you choose the services you want, and at the back, we will get the service done for you automatically through a service orchestration. You will choose the modules, you will choose the capability, you will choose the kind of configuration you need, and we will run it for you. That is the vision that I have. But one thing at the top corner here, Innovation Lab. Like I say, service of the future is not going to be led by the operator. It's going to be led by the customer. And one thing that I want you to just, if you can't read it, I'll just read it for you. One of the quote that I love best is that the light bulb was never invented by continuously improving the candle. If you are doing what you're doing now, you continuously incremental doing what you're doing, you're not going to have a frog jump. You're not going to have a frog leap. So this is why I think that innovation is important, and that's where we are putting our focus on as well. This has been ongoing for a while, and we are preparing ourselves. And the most important thing is that while I say 5G is so far away, while I say that, things like, for example, you probably will not see it in 1 or 2 years' time, but as we prepare this, we are actually rolling out relevant services to our customer whenever it's ready. For example, our SDN services is ready. Our cloud services is ready. It's out and going. Then we're talking about the 4.5G. We are out and going, pushing out the services. There are other things we do as well, which I'll come to it. So if I look at it, that's what 5G is going to offer to you. That's what Optus is preparing. That's what all the operators around the world is preparing. So what's next? What can you expect? What can you expect to change? What can you expect to do? I'm going to bring up a few benefits, or rather kind of like a differentiation from current. One of the things we talk about is common infrastructure. Today, your ETOF machine or your wireless machine that you use, you are actually leveraging off from a common network. If you want to have something special, you probably need to have NB-IoT, you need to have something different. Into the future, what I'm looking at, it'll be a localized infrastructure. It means that in the factory itself, you have a factory or you have an office, you can have your own 5G network in itself. You have a private network. Is this a possibility? Of course it's a possibility. You just ask my OB friend. For one of the mine sites and for one of the airport in this country, we have already run out an enterprise LTE, a private LTE for them. Using our spectrum, using our capability, the airport is using the bandwidth as a private LTE to transmit IPTVs and security and everything else. So this is a reality. While 5G is in the making, like I said, for my colleague in OB, for ourselves, we are rolling out services. So this is important, this is real. In the past, a lot of things is hard configured. You buy something from my OB friend, he said, this is 10 meg. You want another one? You buy another one for me. Into the future, I will believe that equipment will be soft. Equipment can be configured. And it is a reality? Yes, because I've been working with people like the Cisco, like the other partners. Everyone is moving towards that. And this is what's going to happen. The one thing I really liked is the white box approach. How many of you having enterprise service, when you call to buy a complex fixed product or whatsoever, that you get 30 days, 50 days, 60 days of getting service ready? Then after that, to find out that the scheduled appointment is coming at the day that either your IT guy is not around, your telecom guy is not around, you're not around, or the building owner decided to have fire drill and nobody's going to come in. This is a common thing. In the future, when I look at it, the services will be that things will be in a white box. I'll send you a box. I just ask you to plug in through your mobile phone or through your device, through the cloud. I know what's the service that you need. I will transmit everything into your white box and it will be configured on the spot. And to you, you are doing a self-serve, I save my manpower, and you save money. So that is something that we think that is going to be the future, and that's where we think that's going to happen. Now, all this means that there's a lot of flexibility, there's a lot of self-service, there's a lot of capability that we are going to put in the hand of enterprise, in the hand of our customer. So what does it mean? I think a good news for you guys, probably a not very good news for our OB friends, is that fixed monthly cost could be a thing of the past. You could be looking at pay-per-use. I will believe that from all operators, we want to make sure that we deliver value to our consumer. And that is where it's going to be, making it possible for you to pay as what you use, and for you to be able to take charge of what you want to design and you want to roll out. So all this put in place, I'm going to give you 2 use cases, and one of the use cases is like the factory of the future. I'm not going to talk through everything, but I think I just want to point out one thing on autonomous mobility, because that is where it is going to be very relevant to 5G, and it is about, for the forklift to the drones. Imagine that in a forklift that you have in your logistics company, you see a few of the guys moving here, there, and then they try to avoid each other, right? Now, can you imagine that speed times 10, times 100? If you imagine that, that is going to happen only if those machines are coordinated among themselves, those machines, those forklifts are self-driven, they know what to avoid, when to avoid. And that is the kind of productivity that what we call the automated vehicles, automated drones, or even in the port, or even in the container shipyard, that's going to happen. So this is one of the use cases that was put in place in one of the European countries in the port using 5G. It's an extreme coordination of mobilities, of logistics. The way they pick things up is extremely fast. And that is where one of the use cases. But remember this word, it's ultra reliable. You cannot have anything crashing into each other. Farm. Remember earlier I told you guys that, the imagination is only limited by yourself. One of the very interesting farm use case, which we are actually developing a solution for, is that solution that was coined by one of the farmer. The farmer said, can you use 5G to help me to monitor one thing? I got a lot of cows, but it's always very hard to find out when is the right time for them to reproduce. Can you monitor it and tell me when is the right time for my cow to be ready for reproduction? And can you please help me to do it? And we are developing a solution for that. See? It is only limited by your own imagination. Now, if you ask an engineer to come and present, if he don't give you a block diagram like that, he is not worth his salt. So I have to come up with something like that because my OB friend tell me so. Now, for Optus, what we're going to do is that we're going to make it easy for you to realize the kind of things you want to do. So we are also preparing ourselves. Other than the physical layers, other than the capability layers, we are putting up a service suite. Like I said, when things get very complex, you don't want things to fail. When things get very complex, you have a bunch of data. Protecting those data are extremely important. Therefore, as part of our service, we have a very good security suite, and we are pushing them very hard. And this is one of the mainstream products that we are pushing. Service enablement through open APIs and orchestration. Like I said, service orchestration means that I'm going to piece everything up for you together. You don't have to worry. All you need to do, go to the portal and choose it. We will give it to you. The artificial intelligence, the insights, the automation, the cloud, all these things, we have all these modules, and we are preparing all this. If you ask me, when is it going to be ready? I can tell you it's not now. But is it going to be ready in 2 years' time? Probably. But like I say again, all this, you don't have to wait for everything to be ready to dive into it. Because progressively, we are already rolling out services. One of the services that we use quite a fair bit of this is the IoT service that we have actually progressively rolled out in Victoria here. We're working with them. We're working with some utility companies as well as some other companies to roll out IoT services. And this is a very good example of what we are doing. So we are piecing it together so to give you greater agility, increased security, as well as faster speed to market. I'm going to come to the end of my presentation. So, I hope none of you is like my daughter, falling asleep after that. But if you still feel something like that, let me just quickly wrap up what I say, 5 points. I think first of all, 5G is a mobility, it's the next generation of mobility that give you greater capacity, availability, latency. Point number 2, 5G, to me, at least, is the last piece of puzzle that's going to enable industrialization 4.0 because of its mobility. Number 3, because of that, the opportunity and the potential out there is great. The 4th point, Optus, as well as all the other telco, we are preparing ourselves. And we are continuously roll out services for you. And the 5th point, I can't emphasize enough, is that all this is only going to be possible if every one of you participate, if every one of you come up with the solution you want and talk to us. Because eventually, when this time comes, it's not about selling a product. It's really about selling a solution that gives you the differentiation. So after all this, I hope that guys a little bit more insight about 5G. But for those of you who just woke up and don't really know what 5G is, remember this. C stands for capacity, A stands for availability, L stands for latency, M stands for machine connection, and that's 5G for you. Something very easy to remember. And that's it from me, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time and thank you for your attention. I hope you have a great day and enjoy this fabulous event from Cisco. Thank you very much. Thank you.